It's April 10th, 2025. Just an ordinary day until an image strikes like lightning. Pope Francis, the Pontiff, appears in a wheelchair, not wrapped in his white cassock or solemn vestments, but wearing a beige and brown-striped poncho, black trousers, and a face marked by fatigue. No pectoral cross, no skullcap. It's an appearance that takes the breath away from the faithful, a mystery that stands out in the heart of Christianity. What prompts the Pope to present himself like this, stripped of every symbol of his role? In this story, we reconstruct the event, explore the reactions of those present, and try to decipher the reasons behind such a bold and unsettling choice. Pope Francis, 88 years old and visibly worn, makes his way down the nave, pushed in his wheelchair by Nurse Massimiliano Strapetti. It's not the first time the Pope has moved around in a wheelchair, but what strikes everyone is his attire. No white cassock, no skullcap, no pectoral cross. In their place, an Argentine poncho, simple and warm, evoking the image of a grandfather seeking comfort rather than the leader of the Catholic Church. Black trousers, practical and anonymous, complete a look that seems to reject every protocol. The Pope heads toward the recently restored chair of St. Peter to inspect the work. Then, in a gesture filled with personal devotion, he moves to the tomb of St. Pius X, a pontiff dear to him. There is no official announcement, no prepared ceremony. It's a surprise visit, an unannounced appearance that catches everyone off guard. The faithful, used to seeing the Pope in solemn garments, are stunned. Some snap photos, others whisper among themselves, while social media lights up with videos and comments. Is it really him? Many ask. Why is he dressed like that? The atmosphere is a mix of wonder and unease. Francis greets people with a weak but sincere smile, shakes hands, exchanges a few words with those who approach him. A child invited to introduce himself shyly speaks in English, and the Pope, helped by a gendarme translating, responds with affection. These are moments of pure humanity, yet the image of a Pope so stripped of sacred symbols casts a shadow of discomfort. Vatican gendarmes escort him discreetly, careful to protect him without stifling the spontaneity of the moment. After a brief visit, Francis returns to Casa Santa Marta, leaving behind an echo of unanswered questions. For many believers, the sight of Pope Francis in a poncho is a difficult image to digest. The Catholic Church is steeped in symbols, and the Pope, as the Vicar of Christ, is the guardian of a visual tradition that speaks to the hearts of the faithful. The white cassock, the skullcap, the pectoral cross, each element is a sign of continuity, a reminder of the sacredness of the role. To see him without these attributes, in a poncho that could belong to anyone, has unsettled those who seek in the Pope a steady reference point in a chaotic world. He looked like a sick old man, not the Pope, confides an Italian pilgrim, clutching her rosary. I prayed for him, but it frightened me to see him like that. Another faithful, a Spanish tourist, adds, I understand he's human, but the Pope is not just a man. He's a symbol. Without vestments, it feels like something is broken. On social media, comments are divided. Some praise Francis's humility, others see it as a gesture of authenticity, while still others speak of a lack of respect for tradition. No Pope has ever appeared like this in the basilica, someone writes. He's the people's Pope. He doesn't need ornaments. The turmoil doesn't stem from clothing alone, but from the overall image. A fragile man, with oxygen tubes in his nose, a face hollowed out by recent illness. Francis is recovering from a 38-day hospitalization at the Gemelli Polyclinic for bilateral pneumonia. His fragile health is no secret, but seeing him so exposed, without the signs of his office, amplifies the sense of vulnerability and illness. To understand Pope Francis's gesture, we must look at the context, his personality, and the message he may have wished to convey. Several hypotheses could explain such an unusual appearance. From the beginning of his pontificate, Francis has broken with convention. He chose to live in Casa Santa Marta instead of the Apostolic Palace, wore simple black shoes instead of traditional red slippers, and renounced symbols of power like the mozzetta. The poncho, a typical garment from his native Argentina, could be yet another expression of his pursuit of simplicity. In a moment of physical fragility, perhaps he wished to present himself not as a distant authority, but as a man among men, a pilgrim of hope, in line with the theme of the 2025 Jubilee. His extended hospitalization has left the Pope weakened. The oxygen tubes, the wheelchair, the slow pace of his movements speak of a body fighting to recover. The poncho, warm and practical, may have been chosen for comfort, to shield him from the cool air of the basilica without the burden of liturgical vestments. The black trousers, instead of the cassock, might make movement easier or respond to medical needs. In this sense, his attire may not be symbolic, but simply a practical necessity, a compromise between his desire to go out and his physical limitations. Pope Francis has often used gestures to communicate. His appearance without vestments might be an invitation to look beyond external forms and focus on the essence of faith. In a time when the Church faces criticism for its structure and wealth, appearing as a sick grandfather could be a way of reminding people that Christianity is made of humanity, not ornaments. The absent cross around his neck might be symbolically present in his suffering body, a reminder of Christ's cross carried through human frailty. It's also possible that the appearance was an impulsive act. Francis is known for his spontaneous outings. On April 6th, at the end of the Jubilee Mass for the sick, he appeared unexpectedly in St. Peter's Square. On April 9th, he met with King Charles and Queen Camilla without prior notice. The basilica visit might have been driven by a personal desire to see the restored chair or to pray at the tomb of St. Pius X without much thought for protocol. In that case, the poncho and trousers were simply what he happened to be wearing, with no premeditated intention. Finally, one cannot ignore the possibility that Francis deliberately wanted to provoke a reaction. Appearing without vestments in such a sacred place might be a way to challenge expectations, to prompt the faithful to reflect on the meaning of faith. In a world obsessed with appearances, a pope who strips away symbols of power invites us to look to the heart of the gospel. Blessed are the poor in spirit. It's a risk, of course, because the discomfort of many shows how deeply symbols matter, but it's a risk Francis seems willing to take. The faithful's unease isn't just about clothing, it's about what that clothing represents. The Catholic Church lives through signs, the bread and wine of the Eucharist, the water of baptism, the cross as a symbol of salvation. The Pope's vestments are not mere garments, but a language that speaks of continuity, authority, and sacredness. To relinquish them, even briefly, creates a void that unsettles. Francis, in his poncho, seems to say, "It's not the clothes that make the Pope." But for many, those clothes are an integral part of his role, a bridge between the divine and the human. Moreover, the Pope's physical fragility amplifies the effect. Seeing him so vulnerable, without the vestments that conceal his humanity, reminds the faithful that even the successor of Peter is mortal. In an era of global uncertainty, conflicts, economic crises, polarization, the Pope is often seen as a beacon of stability. His appearance in a poncho, instead, projects an image of precariousness that can unsettle. Pope Francis's appearance on April 10, 2025 will not be easily forgotten. It was a moment of rupture, an image that divided, moved, and questioned. For some, it was proof of his holiness, his willingness to be close to the least, even at the cost of shaking conventions. For others, it was a step too far from tradition, a risk that alienated those who see the Pope as an unchanging symbol. Whatever the truth, this gesture reminds us that Francis is a pontiff who resists categorization. His poncho is not just a piece of clothing, it is a provocation, a question, a testimony. Perhaps in that simple fabric lies more gospel than we might imagine. An invitation to strip ourselves of certainties, to encounter Christ in fragility, to find faith even when the symbols fade. And as St. Peter's Basilica returns to its routine, the echo of that poncho continues to resonate, challenging us to look beyond appearances, to the heart of a pope who, once again, chose to surprise us. Dear brothers and sisters, let us know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the upcoming videos and can become part of this faith-filled community. May God bless us all.